Unsettled. I'm pretty sure you've probably gathered that by clicking the button. And today we're going to be discussing the pitchfork murder of Charles Walton. Happened in England. Not a different country this time, where a lot of weirdos.
A little bit closer to home on this one.
Not far.
Not far.
Not far from it, but it's one of Britain's oldest, most unsolved murders to...
One of them. Yeah, it's one of them.
Literally, you buy any unsolved murder mystery book, this appears in every single one of them. So I found it like, well, we may as well do it. We may as well do it. So, if you guys are new here, don't forget to subscribe, drop a comment below, tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, dislike us, like us. Turn the notifications on because we will be preparing a couple of specials later on when we finally come to the end of the season. And as you've probably now gathered, the last episode is a cliffhanger.
So I've heard.
You're going to enjoy it.
We'll cross that bridge when we get to that one.
We have to cross a bridge to get here.
Literally.
So yeah, if you're new here, subscribe to us. We are the Unsettled, and this is the case of the pitchfork murder of Charles Walton, also known as the Witchcraft murder.
Interesting.
See? I'm glad you're liking it already. But I did find the more I dug into this, the deeper I got invested in it.
Okay.
So it might be
one of them.
Yeah, it might be a bit of a long one, but you might also notice what I noticed as you progress through the case itself. So, Charles Walton was killed on Valentine's Day in 1945. He was found on a farm in Lower Quinton, a Warwickshire village of where he lived. The 74-year-old farmer labourer was known to be a little unusual. This is where it all starts adding up.
It's spiralling out of control.
He was a rather recluse type. He lived in a small cottage with his niece.
Okay. Sort of like a hermitage.
Somewhat. I think like most people, when you get to a certain age, you just want to
alone. Yeah, you just want to retire, basically.
He spent most of his time alone, despite suffering from rheumatism. He was always seen working on farms, being active though. So, you know, it kind of shows that maybe certain days he couldn't get out as well, but when he did get out, he was always working. Accounts describe Charles as honest, hard-working, well-mannered, for a 74-year-old anyway. So why would anyone want him dead?
I'm sure we will find out.
We will. Charles Walton's body, as I stated, was found in a field he worked on that day, just below Meon Hill. I think that's how you say it.
Yeah, Meon Hill.
His throat slit by a slash hook, like a scythe.
Yeah, the scythe, the curved blade.
He had,
which is not uncommon on farms, to be fair.
Yeah. So it's a sickle-like tool, basically. Yeah. The cuts were so deep, his head was practically hanging by skin and bone. That seems pretty brutal already. Right. He had also been heavily beaten, leaving his own skull split, ribs broken, heavy bruising on his body, and if that wasn't enough, the pitchfork he had used that day skewered through the lower part of his face into the ground.
2 prongs either side of his neck, and the other 2 through.
That sounds fucking brutal, doesn't it, really? It sounds like a lot more happened than just a slit throat, basically. It sounds like a big gang beat up. Maybe. Yeah.
Definitely seems like some sort of group event.
A group festival. How to kill the old.
Well,
it was done with such force it left his body firmly pinned into the ground though. So imagine how much force and anger was behind that stab, at least. Right. Now the strangest part. A cross allegedly had been carved into his chest. So with the nature of this murder, police called in the best detective they could find. And Chief Inspector Robert Fabian, who soon found out months prior, a woman had been killed the same way, including the cross.
Oh.
I told you it gets intriguing. Right.
So we just have, according to that information, I'm starting to look more on the spiritual side, the spiritual murder
So
side.
now you're thinking witchcraft.
It could be.
Okay. Now, Lower Quinton is a small rural village with a population of a few hundred. Reality is, it's a small village, few houses, a church, a pub, and farms. Someone
Classic
there,
country.
yeah, someone there should know what happened, being a small community. Yet, Detective Fabian found very quickly the village was a quiet area with no one talking, which now seems a bit more.
It's like your classic local village, local shop.
So, no one came forward with information either. Detective Fabian and his partner interviewed nearly all the residents. They was left with more questions than answers. The village was reluctant to speak. One thing that bothered Detective Fabian was the fact that an old man had been murdered in a gruesome, horrific way, and no one seemed worried or scared that a murderer was on the loose. Now, if this was where we lived, and allegedly the murderer was running around, we'd all be like,
everyone would be bricking themselves.
well, yeah, you get what I mean. The whole village seems like, no, it's nothing normal. Like, it's nothing out of the ordinary.
Nothing out of the ordinary. Just
Detective,
keep calm and carry on.
it seems that I don't know, maybe this detective comes from a place where we do, and he's thinking like, this is very odd, no one's panicking.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something that doesn't fit the bill so far.
Yeah. Well, I've lived in a sort of a village.
Yeah.
Where, you know, everyone keeps themselves to themselves, but everyone knows everyone else's business. You know what I mean?
So they would know.
They would
Yeah.
know. Like, whether they'd meet at the fucking post office or whether they'd meet at the shop.
They'd all be like, oh,
Or
did you hear about that murder that took place?
It would
They'd
go
know
round in
something.
the pub.
Yeah. So, Detective Fabian was convinced the village was hiding something. Maybe they didn't like outsiders.
It's not unheard of.
Yeah, bound by secrecy perhaps. Nonetheless, this didn't sit well with the detective, so he dug into the personal life of Charles Walton. I mean, what else could he do at this point?
Well, yeah, that's
What else?
It's not
With
really
the whole village more concerned over crops than possibly a madman at large. Every time Detective Fabian spoke to the villagers, they were all worried about the crops, their water, and it all seemed a bit odd. So, Detective Fabian looked into the rural village, reading a specific book titled Folklore, Old Customs and Superstitions. Right, you with me?
I am.
The book was published in 1929. The book contained various folklore stories and superstitions dedicated to the region. All had a darker underlying past.
The story of the scarecrow comes to mind.
Yeah. So all these stories of basically witchcraft, paranormal. You know, it was a massive hotbed for occult worship as well.
Oh yes.
Right.
Oh yes.
And at the time of Charles Walton's death, that belief was definitely in that area. If this makes sense, like they still believed in this type of stuff.
No.
So Detective Fabian was almost 100% sure the murderer and the way Charles was killed had witchcraft all over it. Right. He also suspected the whole village was in on it.
You would think small, close-knit community.
And felt uneasy around certain parts and around the times.
Oh no, I can see where that is.
And he felt very, I guess, he described it as he felt very unsafe asking questions.
And watched.
Yeah. The theory seemed far-fetched at first, but it all started to add up.
The more he dug into it.
Yeah, Charles Walton himself caught the detective's mind. Locals didn't open up much, but judging by what some locals told Detective Fabian, some said Charles was an eccentric man, lived in confinement. Some locals said they feared him as he had possessed certain powers.
Okay, maybe he's into the dark occult.
You're gonna find out. So, Detective Fabian found out Charles had in fact a gift.
Okay. if you say he's a seer, then
No,
that's just silly because he didn't see his own deal.
His niece said he had a way of communicating with animals. He's not Dr. Dolittle.
No.
Apparently, Charles was a horse whisperer, though through hand and eye movements he could control animals.
Okay.
Well, some people have that knack, I guess.
Yeah, no, some people do.
I can control slugs, pick them up, put them in a place. If they start going that way, I'll move them a bit. That's my control over animals.
You're a slug whisperer.
Definitely. Right, so he could speak with birds as well, according to a witness. Charles could mimic bird calls and even train them to come close to him.
See, the thing is, you can do that over time anyway.
And he's an old man.
You've got nothing else to do.
He just mocks bird calls and they come over to him. That's not seen as superstitious.
I know, I've done it.
Yeah.
Like, you're bored,
and
so you whistle, and then the bird whistles, and then you whistle again, and then the bird's kind of starting to copy you.
A friend of ours lived on a farm, and he could get the cows over to him, if you remember what you said. He said there's certain things that...
There's certain ways that you can do, which they're built in with them.
And even... Okay, this person, witness, even said himself he could stop the birds eating his seeds he had planted. Another local said Charles claimed to speak to the dead.
Okay.
Right? In the book Detective Fabian read, a man also named Charles Walton could speak and see ghosts.
Great.
And had met
so I'm going to have a pitchfork through my chest and nothing.
Right. So
my head nearly cut off with a sickle. Oh, this is going to be awesome.
So what you have...
What did you on your summer vacation? Well...
So what you've got to take into account here, the whole village thinks he's a bit of a weirdo.
No, that's...
yeah. And obviously the detective got this book about Warwickshire. It's hauntings, it's ghostly stuff, and there's a person in there called Charles who could speak... Charles Walton, in fact, who could speak to ghosts and things.
Maybe he's the reincarnation.
Maybe many people believe that.
And maybe many people.
And allegedly a black dog had been haunting around this area.
Is it like a Dartmoor?
Well, mate, it's going to
get worse. They've got a black dog, they've got everything. They've got werewolves, they've got wolves.
Villagers said...
They've got the hairy hands of Dartmoor. That's a good one.
Didn't do your podcast very well, did it?
No.
Right. Villagers said he could stare at you and they felt cursed. Detective Fabian...
I've been around a few people that stare at you and you get that evil sinking pit feeling inside your stomach that you're like, oh shit, I'm in trouble.
I don't.
It's only when you get told off and you barely get told off. You normally more of the run away and laugh.
Run away and laugh hysterically down the road like, ah! Pretty much. So, Detective Fabian searched Charles's home and in one area came across a large area in the back garden covered in, I hope I get this right, natterjack toads. Charles was breeding them and apparently used them as offerings for witchcraft. These toads were often the case for ruined crops and soil, apparently.
Yeah, I've heard that they can give off certain toxins.
The beer also tasted vile, as it was a bad year for the crops. Is it possible Charles used the toads for causing bad damage to the soils in the area of the farmlands? As he did work on every single farm. Right, yeah. The locals did complain more about the bad crops and the possibility of a madman.
No, that is true.
Yeah? Right. We progress. Is it possible the village saw Charles as a reason for the bad crops? Did the villagers believe he had cursed the land and was the village now seeking some form of
retribution?
Justice, I guess. Yeah. Did they really believe this old man was a witch of any kind? Was this some form of old witch kill tradition of
black magic?
Yeah.
Stuff?
Detective Fabian believed so.
Well, at this point, the poor bloke has got nothing to go on anyway.
Yeah. The Cotswold region had been home to every paranormal entity, demon, and alien sighting for many centuries, right? Witches, demons, black dogs, fairies, crop circles, ghosts, everything I personally could possibly imagine. Warwickshire had, or still has.
Pixies at the end of the garden, that's a good one.
Yeah. Detective Fabian wrote in his description that the crime scene, after no clues was found, that the circles on the village hilltops are
circles?
Circles. Just circles, no crop circles. The circles on the hilltops are circles of stones. Apparently they were held to hold black Sabbaths under the shadow of the Meon Hill, a ritual sadistic one that was carried out.
I've heard.
Yeah, so it seems Detective Fabian was doing a lot of digging.
He was definitely digging, but
possibly for the wrong thing.
Yeah.
Detective
right
Fabian,
reasons, wrong motive.
Yeah. Detective Fabian wrote about how Black Dog followed him around various areas surrounding this hill.
Okay.
Right. Detective Fabian spoke to a young boy asking, "Is this your dog?" He pointed to where he last saw the black dog and the boy seemed confused. "The black dog over there." The boy looked pale and ran off when he saw it. Right. The village caught wind the detective had seen possibly a ghost or a demon dog and now was starting to not like him there.
Classic.
Right. So, Detective Fabian soon encounters strange events. Like his partner did, cows were dying in fields in front of him. You think that's a bit weird?
See,
right.
The dark dog omen.
Yeah. It's moving on to it, right? The village refused to speak to them anymore, slamming doors in their faces, and some villagers got ill after talking to the detectives, allegedly.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So now it's like, we're not talking. Maybe it was the fact that the detective was digging too far and they were like, hang on, we're not dealing with this no more. You're bringing more shit to our land. Ooh, let's kill him. Pitchforking. Right.
Maybe it will please the gods.
Yeah. A few days later, a black dog was found hung in the tree near where Charles Walton's body was found.
A poor dog.
He's been running around trying to get food, then he ends up getting hung. But yeah, they found a dog hung near where Charles Walton's body was found, in a tree.
Okay.
Is this basically to scare off the detective, you think? I mean, whoever's dog it was is quite sad. Right?
It's probably, I wouldn't surprise that it's the village trying to get him away from
Detective Fabian thought that it was a sick prank, but later wrote in his memoirs on this case, "We were certainly up against witchcraft here."
It sounds like it.
So, theory one, it was ritualistic. The village
It could be.
The village believed Charles was a witch. The village all came together, being that of a suspicious community, and killed him off.
True. It's more of a rite than a belief.
Right.
I would assume, just the way there's like the sacrificial cleansing. Like they cut the throat, they pin him to the ground. Like it's more of like a rite. So this is how you deal with a dark entity or a light entity or whatever, rather than as I said about the scarecrow. So many believe that the scarecrow, you would kill off passers-by, skin a certain part of their body, attach it to the scarecrow, and your crops will have a bumper harvest that year. If there's no passers-by, then you would have the sacrifice of a loved one. And this whole village was in on it, basically.
Yeah. So you think maybe there is some substance to the first theory? It could be. Okay.
It could be.
Right. So theory two, there was a cult formed in the nearby village. An elderly woman named Tarrant was attacked and pitchforked severely 4 years prior, or close to it in this case. Right. It was first
Could be a thing that has to happen every 4 years. Like, depends how much this investigator went back.
It happened 74 years before Charles. Charles was 74 at the time of the death.
It could be an age thing, yeah. It could be time and age. And
James Hayward was arrested for her murder and was locked in Broadmoor, but rumour has it, despite being unstable, he belonged and worked within a cult to kill witches. Links here are the pitchfork and the years from death of her to Charles.
Yeah, within the age.
There's also links in the Bella and the Witch Elm, also an unsolved case. Was yet again another part of possibly cult worship in that same region of England. Yeah. Right. I would like to point out Detective Fabian only had one unsolved case in his career, and it was this one in his career in Scotland Yard.
99% success rate.
And even stated one day, someone may come forward, but to be honest, this was a case that a London city detective was shunned by due to being an outsider.
Yeah, outsider of a local small community.
Yeah, but they all left the case open even after Detective Fabian's death. His memoirs are all about this place. Yeah. Also, and one final kick to this case, Charles Walton's body eventually went missing. It was dug up and vanished.
Interesting.
Which is also another weird part. So, theory 3. Detective Fabian assumed, amongst the witch cult theory that seemed to plague this case in the village, Detective Fabian said one suspect remained inconclusive, and that was Arthur Potter, the farmer who found the body. Potter was in debt to Charles Walton and was having a difficult time financially, and rumour has it that Charles had the money hidden away. Right? Fabian interviewed Potter countless times, and during this, Potter changed his story continuously.
Oh dear.
Right. Fabian was also convinced he set up the murder to look like a ritual and witchcraft. Because it was popular at that time.
Could be to hide motive, maybe.
Fabian had no real evidence other than Potter was financially struggling, and knowing Charles had money,
went from there.
Yeah.
Or asked him for money.
And he
Charles
was refused.
Right. Yeah, he was working with Charles that day.
One final factor was Charles Walton was missing his pocket watch, hand watch. It was only a cheap tin pocket watch, but with, it was attached, a chain attached, right? To his waistcoat. Fabian was convinced if he ever found the watch, he would find he would find who killed Charles Walton. Yet the watch was actually never found until years later. The watch mysteriously appeared at Charles Walton's home, clean.
Interesting.
So whoever stole it the day of the murder put it back eventually into Charles Walton's outbuilding / farmhouse. Right. Inside the pocket watch was different coloured glass used by witches to keep evil away.
Interesting.
Yeah. Either way, the killer returned to deposit the watch after the house and outbuildings and so on was searched while Detective Fabian was there.
Yeah. So they waited until the heat went down before they returned it.
And whoever took the watch couldn't keep the evil away from Charles Walton. Because they took the watch and then he got killed. So evil followed him basically. Because that watch had a certain crystal glass that kept evil away, right? And it seems funny that the watch goes missing
on this specific day,
and he ends up dead. And
well, maybe it is a superstition thing.
Maybe. I mean, a lot of people go to certain beliefs.
Yeah. No.
So, what's your thoughts? Clearly, it seems like this Potter dude did it.
Well, he was definitely involved in it.
Obviously.
In some manner. Maybe he set up the whole thing of, right, he's going to be here. Like, he's going to be at the top field. I've just left him. You can do it now.
Yeah.
Or he was going back to the village, going, look.
It seems like it was more of a, oh no, we don't like this guy, let's get rid of him. We're now blaming him for our problems.
Yeah, but if you think he's been within that village for X amount of years, like from birth,
You make a good point.
So
No one's
he's
now
one
gone
of
for him.
them. Yeah, he's now one of
us.
Literally,
One of us.
Literally. But like, maybe he's done something.
Maybe it was toads.
Maybe it was the toads. Like
maybe it was the fact that they all just found him weird, and every weird occurrence had
it somehow managed to get back to this first farm.
Yeah, and this village soon started going like, he's a weirdo. He doesn't.
He's been on every single farm that this has happened.
And we've had bad crops, and he's bringing his toads everywhere. So it is up in the air. Witchcraft or not, either way, that pocket watch was meant to keep evil away, and it didn't.
I'm definitely leaning on the dark arts, not necessarily witchcraft, but I'm definitely leaning on the dark arts.
It's interesting. I did say there's certain bits that
would say, oh,
and you, not being funny, you don't expect a detective to lie, because in his memoirs I literally copied it word for word. I was just like, it seems so strange that he came across a black dog, it was dead the next day, and it seems like they wanted him gone out of that village because he was digging too deep.
Yeah, like it just reminds me along the lines of like the Little Britain corner shop.
Like, reminds me a bit like Hot Fuzz.
It's just more of, we're a close village, we keep ourselves to ourselves, we'll sort our own problems out, we don't need this.
It still shocks me the fact that that village wasn't scared that possibly someone had...
Yeah, it's more of the... But then you would assume from a rural farm village...
That would be scary.
Like, their crops dying, their whole life screwed, rather than, I'm gonna die, but at least my farm and my money, like my family will still be safe. You know what I mean? But it's that kind of...
If I lived in like a rural village and, I don't know, I got wind that the madman on the hill got slaughtered and there's a madman on the loose. Like, if I got wind that the psychopath witchy man up there who does weird shit and talks to animals has just been killed, I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's got to be a force I don't want to encounter. I'm not going out for next week.
Unless it's all of you lot in that village.
All planned it.
I've all planned it, like a specific community, like a specific 4 people will definitely do it. Like holding down one will do the action.
Seems sad though. An old man.
It does. Like it's one of those ones where it's just like it's happened. It's just that it's happened loads of times within loads of villages, but it's this one that's being
and it seems a bit weird.
Investigated.
It's kind of like you hear the story of a little old lady that died and no one knows how, but the whole town seemed to, I don't know, hold back. Or not necessarily. Oh yeah, she died because of this, and you find out it was someone pumping venomous poisons through a letterbox or something. It definitely wasn't a drifter.
No, it definitely wasn't a drifter. It's got to be someone within that community.
So what do you guys think? Witchcraft? Financial struggle? Or maybe the fact they wanted him gone because he put toads in. Like I said, I find it weird. Charles kept that pocket watch on him all this time.
And the one day they loses it.
Or the one day it was taken from him.
He
ends up being part of a cult.
A cult action. What do you guys think?
We're the Unsettled. That's
Leave
Unsettled.
A like, comment. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. And subscribe.